All right, welcome to our third membership moment for the 2019-2020 school year. And we're going to kick it off today with Newsela. And one of the really cool things is if you are a TIE member, you have access to all of these resources that TIE membership provides you. And on the membership FAQ, we have, if you go all the way down to the bottom and look at vendor partners, you will see that Newsela is one of our big vendor partners. And so really excited about that. And today we're going to hear a little bit about some of the resources that Newsela can provide us. We got Alyssa and Dave with Newsela with us, and so they're going to be sharing some information and we'll go from there. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. Okay, you can share, Alyssa.
Okay, 1 second. I think my toolbar disappeared for a minute, so now I need to figure out where it went. Julie, I'm not sure if so when you unshared it, actually, like the bar where I typically click to share my screen disappeared. So I don't know if there's something else that I'm missing.
There shouldn't be. Go ahead and click in your Zoom window again. It should have
Okay, we'll do that one more time then. Yeah.
It should have taken you back, and then it should be at the bottom. You won't see it unless you mouse over it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see it. It disappeared. So now I'm having issues figuring out where to actually.
Where'd it go?
Yeah, it totally disappeared, which is.
That's okay. No, that's really not okay. Hi, Lynette. All right, so I'm going to share again, and then we will see. So you guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to stop share, and then now what do you see, Alyssa? Did it come back?
It didn't come back, so that's where I'm trying to figure out where it went, because typically I have that little bar that pops up. I'm trying to see if it disappeared on my second screen. Let me try this one more time. Okay.
Is it back?
Found it.
Oh, good.
Yes, it was hiding. Okay, here we go. Zoom is funky like that. Okay. All right, can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. So thank you so much for bearing with me that technical difficulty. We're back and we're ready to begin our presentation on social emotional learning. I'm really excited to dive into Newsela's SEL collection and how you can potentially leverage this resource for your teachers and students to really build out your SEL initiatives in South Dakota. So our agenda for today, we're going to do a brief round of introductions of who I am, and then we also have my colleague Dave on the line. And then we'll talk about why does SEL matter, and then kind of dive into some of the recent trends in data to really ground us in our why. And then we'll think about how does this resource actually look for students and teachers, and how can you leverage this in your classroom. At the end, we'll have some time for questions and answers. So feel free to take notes or save your questions for the end. Really quick introductions. My name is Alyssa Wing, and I am a Learning Engagement Manager here with Newsela. I'm based in Orange County, California, but I did all of my teaching on the East Coast. So I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA in both Washington, D.C. and Brooklyn, New York. And as you can imagine, as a former middle school educator, SEL and social emotional learning and all those skills and habits that our collection goes over is something that was really integral in my instruction as a middle school teacher. And then I'll have Dave introduce who he is.
Thanks, Alyssa. So my name is Dave Gilbert. I work on strategic product and other types of partnerships for Newsela, which includes our educational service agency partnership program. We are, as you probably know, or as Juliet indicated at the top of this, we are officially partnered with TIE. And what that means for South Dakota schools and districts is that you are eligible for a consortium discount program, which we'd be happy to provide some more specific information on. As of today, that discount can range anywhere from between 5 and 40% off of the list price of any Newsela product that is purchased. And that depends on a few different criteria. So we can actually provide some more information at the very end of this, so that if you're interested in learning a little bit more about social emotional learning or other types of products from Newsela, you can get in touch directly with the Newsela South Dakota team, so we can provide you with some more information on that membership discount. And I'll turn that back over to you, Alyssa.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
All right, so we'll go ahead and dive into the presentation, and we'll start with, why does social emotional learning matter? I wanted to ground us in this question before we began. What are your hopes and dreams for your students? I think oftentimes as educators, we can get lost in the sauce of the daily grind of what teaching can do. And it's good to really think about that big picture thinking. When your students leave your classroom, what is your hope for them? And so I want you to just take a moment, think of your answer, and keep that in your mind as we go on in today's presentation. SEL, what is it? So SEL is the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. This is what is going to ground us for today's presentation, this idea of really giving our students this opportunity to grow in their social and emotional skills. And so when you look at this definition, I want you to think to yourself, what are some of the words that stick out to you? Did any of that align to when you first thought about the hopes and dreams of your students? For me specifically, the words that really pop out are thinking about empathy and positive goals. A lot of times our students need help in understanding what empathy really is and building that skill set. And a lot of the work that I did as a middle school educator was grounding my students in how to set goals. How do we continue to work for them when things get difficult? How do we push through challenges? How do we persevere? All of those things that students go through and we go through as adults actually require real teaching with our kids. And so here's just a quick look at some data that can ground us into understanding why this is so critical in today's world right now. A recent report from the Pew Research Center focused on mental health challenges, and a national poll asked students to evaluate their own needs in terms of social and emotional learning. And it was very clear that students want more of it in the classroom. The top two sort of problems that teens today are facing, that I know that you won't be surprised by, are actually anxiety and depression, and bullying is at the top of the list as well. One thing that really changed my mindset about this was thinking about, as an educator, if I were to look at the data about reading skills and think about, okay, if my students were struggling in reading comprehension or were below their reading level, I wouldn't hesitate to find the remediation skills or find those resources to help my students build their reading competency. And so oftentimes when we look at the data like this, how often are we actually thinking like that? When we see that anxiety, depression, and bullying are major problems for our students, what are we actually doing to fill that void and help our students combat these very real issues that they're facing? And so when I thought about that, I thought about, yes, the need for SEL is absolutely necessary. And so furthermore, there's more data on just some of the sort of challenges that our students face today. And it's reported that 1 in 5 students face a form of bullying, whether it's physical, emotional, or social. And if you take one look at the stories in today's news, you'll see that the issues that our students face are real and have real consequences. And I wonder if any of those headlines would change if social emotional learning was a core part of our curriculum in our school systems. I wonder if we could prevent some of this senseless sort of violence or suffering for our kids if we really thought about social emotional learning the way that we think about maybe reading skills. And so what's really exciting to see is that the need for social emotional learning is not only being recognized, but states are really taking action on that. And so in South Dakota, what's really fantastic about your state is that there is a state law that does encourage districts to integrate social and emotional learning or character education into your state curriculum. So obviously this is a priority for South Dakota, and I'm really excited to show you how Newsela can really fit the needs of this initiative. Again, I also discovered that SEL is not just, you know, this law, but there are also initiatives in your state that encourage schools to take on these initiatives. And so this was a really cool article that I came across talking about the social emotional learning innovation grant that your state is issuing for schools who are being innovative in this arena. So we know that obviously South Dakota is taking this seriously, and so hopefully Newsela can be a partner with you in this work. And so how does SEL fit into school? When you think of school, there's sort of different buckets and categories that the school setting covers, right? So obviously we know that effective academic instruction is at the core of what schools do. We often think about the data, we think about how we're moving the needle for kids' learning and their achievement. But within that, to create effective academic instruction, we know that culture and classroom behavior management is at the key of that. If students don't have that safe classroom culture, then learning really isn't going to happen. And even more than just the academic piece, right? If you think about these puzzle pieces that you see on my screen, social emotional learning is at the core of that. How do we create this caring school environment where students actually want to show up, where we have a safe environment where students feel like they can take risks, grow in their identity, and really push themselves academically, but also emotionally and in their character. And so with SEL and Newsela, there are sort of two different ways that you can look at the instruction. You can look at SEL as a really blend in your curriculum where you are teaching SEL competencies with your curriculum in your content areas, like English, for example. So if you're reading a novel in English and your character is going through maybe some challenges with the antagonist, how can you blend SEL and really talk about maybe relationship building within that lesson so that it becomes blended, right? Or you can also teach SEL as a standalone class. Some schools have time in their day built in to really focus on character education. That was something that I actually did as a former middle school teacher. We had advisory time where we would just focus on character and SEL initiatives. So it can be either way. But the cool thing about Newsela's collection is that it is meant for you to decide. There's no right way to use our collection. If you feel like you want to blend it with your core curriculum, that is something you absolutely can do. Or if you feel like you would rather teach it separately in a separate block or a separate class, it can absolutely be done that way as well. And so we align to CASEL's core competencies, and CASEL is the leading research organization on social emotional learning. And these are the 5 competencies that we align to. So our collection has resources for each of these domains and competencies. And those are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship building, and responsible decision making. You can either choose to really sequence your teaching and go through each of those competencies thoroughly and in order, or like I said, you can be responsive to the needs of your students in your school. So if you recognize that maybe self-management is the arena that you really need to focus on because your students are having a hard time managing their self and their emotions, maybe you want to focus on that. And you can match students with the right skills depending on the time of the year and what you feel is necessary for your students. So again, it can be sequenced or it can be really responsive into the way that you feel that your kids need. And so I'm going to walk you through what our resources actually look like. So here is a screenshot of an example of what one of your collections will look like. So we have collections for elementary, middle school, and high school. This one is what the middle school one looks like. I'm actually going to take it live on the site just to make it easier so you can actually see how our platform you would interact with. And so this is what the collection looks like. On the left-hand side, you'll see the 5 competencies listed here. When I click into it, it'll lead me to topics under those competencies. So in self-awareness, there are several topics listed. So you'll see emotions, mindfulness, identity and self-concept, and then confidence and strengths. When I click on a topic such as emotions, this is where you see all of the articles that live in each of those topics. And so we always include a little overview for the teacher. What is this topic about? How might you teach it? And when you click on resources up here, This is where you'll open up any of the lesson sparks that are embedded. Lesson sparks are basically pathways for you to teach using the content that we provided in this collection. So again, we want you to be able to use this resource as you see fit. So again, if you feel like you have another activity as a teacher that you'd want to use with our content, you absolutely can. Or you can use the lesson sparks that we've embedded here really as your foundation for your lesson. So for example, in this topic, there's a vocabulary worksheet, which if I click on, it opens up to a PDF. And you can make copies for your students and have them follow along for each of those articles that are embedded here in the emotions topic. And that's really what the collection looks like overall. If I continue to scroll down, self-management is the next core competency. And again, it has a text set. So these are the topics that we've listed. So this one has calming down. This is actually new, processing grief, which we recognize is a really important sort of skill set that kids need. And so again, we've embedded that in our updated collection. Self-control, determination and growth mindset, organization, courage and risk-taking, stress management, healthy habits. So as you can tell, these are sort of like the larger buckets of topics that fit within each of these competencies. And again, you can either choose to go in order, to go sequenced, or as a teacher, if you recognize at the beginning of the year, maybe they need more help with organization, you might choose to use these articles as your launch pad. And then again, resources are embedded in each of these topics. This one looks like it's another vocabulary sheet, but the lesson sparks can range from a worksheet or even a video to watch to do some sort of cross comparison there. And so this is overall what the collection looks like. Every article does also include activities if you're not familiar with Newsela. What is really powerful about our content is that we have leveling for every article at 5 different levels. So when you think about differentiation and really providing your students access to content, I think Newsela here really solves that problem for teachers. If I wanted to assign this article, you have 5 different levels that your students could read it at. And so that's really powerful when you think about the range of students that might exist in your class. When I was a 6th grade teacher, even though I taught 6th grade, I had many students who are reading, on the 2nd grade reading level all the way up to high school. And so this is a really powerful tool for me to leverage as an educator to make sure that the content really matches my students' reading needs as well. In addition to the leveling tool, every article does have activities attached. You can expect a write prompt and a quiz in every article. The write prompt is a prompt that we embed for each of these articles. And so, for example, in this one, it says, write a short paragraph that explains the central idea of the article. Use at least 2 details from the articles to support your response. That's a pretty typical response, but if you wanted to customize it, you absolutely can. You can actually make these responses customized to maybe something that happened at your school and you want students to reflect on this incident with maybe the content that you're reading in the article. So again, there's a lot of ability for teachers to customize here and make the materials really fit the needs of what your kids need. In addition to the write prompt, there is the quiz, which is a 4-question reading quiz aligned to 2 standards as well. So when we think about the blend of SEL and the content, what I find really beautiful about this is that you can still teach those literacy skills that are necessary in all of the content areas, but you're blending these also very necessary social and emotional skills that kids need to be successful, not just in school, but in life, right? It's like, how do your kids cope with challenge? When something like sadness and grief hits over them, what are some of the coping mechanisms that we can teach kids how to be resilient? How do we move forward when really challenging situations happen in our lives? Or when we have friendship problems, because we know in school that is absolutely like something that you can expect. How do they deal with it, right? How do they deal with that in a healthy way? How do they communicate with their friends and their partners in school to really resolve conflict? And oftentimes as teachers, we'll teach that in isolation. We teach it when it happens or when an incident happens in our class. But what I find really beautiful about Newsela's collection is that it doesn't have to just be responsive to one incident, right? This can be a year-long blend where in any class, whether it's science, math, history, or ELA, you could be blending these articles in your instruction. When I think about science, maybe you're discussing the debate on self-driving cars and you want to talk about responsible decision making. So I think SEL has an opportunity to really blend in all of those content areas. It doesn't have to be this, separate content area that you focus on. It can absolutely be a blend in your already existing content area if time is an issue as well for your classroom. And so that's what the live site looks like. Jumping back to the presentation really quickly, I just want to make sure that I cover all of the points that I have in my presentation. I did get a chance to show you some of those articles, but again, we have a variety of articles that range from explainer articles where we really explain what those topics are, what is empathy, what is self-control, what is conflict resolution, and then we really bridge that with real-world examples. And so I think that students really find it engaging and relevant because not only are they learning about something that feels real to them with the real life examples, but what's beautiful is that you can have a lot of students reflect and self-reflect on what's going on in their own lives in school and outside of school with the explainer articles that we have embedded in our resources. And here's just sort of a quick chart if you're sort of brainstorming ways that you might want to leverage this in your classroom. If your students are, let's say, at the beginning of the year and you want to really cultivate them getting to know each other, you might pick the topic identities and perspective taking. And this chart can really help you, I think, as an educator decide what is best for you. Depending on where you are in the year, where you are in your instruction, there might be certain competencies that you want to focus on. And so this chart can kind of give you like a pathway for how you would decide to teach. And I think this is really helpful for teachers is, to decide what is best for them, is thinking about what are the skills necessary for my kids to be successful in this current unit of learning that we're in. I did point this out, but this is new. Processing Grief is a new resource for all grade bands, elementary, middle, and high school that we offer. And then also we have lesson sparks embedded within all of those topics. So again, if you're really thinking about holistically, how do I teach this with my students? Newsela's got you. We've got those lesson sparks that offer you not only the content that you need to teach, but also giving you lesson ideas so that you can literally take this and implement it in your classroom the very next day. And so if you want to learn more about Newsela's SEL collection, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can visit this website link right here, which will take you to an informational site with all of the information about our collection. You can also get in touch with the South Dakota Newsela team here. And if you want to stay connected with me, here is my email, or you can follow me on Twitter. Love to stay connected after this and continue the conversation should you want that. And great, so now we'll end with any questions that the audience may have.
Thank you, Alyssa. This is wonderful. I'm really excited to be able to have a preview of the SEL collection because I haven't looked closely at that one before. And so this would be considered an add-on package to a Newsela subscription?
Yes, that's correct. I can jump in here, Alyssa.
Yeah.
So as of today, that's right. The base Newsela offering is what we call Pro. Social emotional learning collection is an add-on that would be available in addition to Pro.
Okay, thank you. That helps understand the structure there. I don't think I have any other questions. Do you have any questions, Lynette? Okay. Well,
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Alyssa, if you could just maybe go back one additional slide for any future viewers of the webinar. If you do have any specific questions that come in, please feel free to email us directly at ty-sd@newsela.com, and we can get in touch with you directly.
Thank you.